Johnston again, the assistant news editor at the Lumberjack. So excited to present our second guest this morning. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Jermaine Martinez. I am an associate teaching professor in the School of Communication here at NAU. Of course, NAU.
And love AAU. For a lot of the behind-the-scenes journalism staff have actually had you as a professor, but I have not had that opportunity yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I hear that you're a very beloved professor in the journalism communication department.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that is part of why we brought you on to talk about some clips ahead of the debate. And so I have a question for you. And we're talking about, the communication strategies that are affected in these debates. And with so many people saying, I don't feel like my candidate's talking about the policies that I care about. I don't feel like people are talking about policy. What else is there to communicate?
Right. Yeah. Well, when it comes to political communication, I guess the first premise you begin with is that perception becomes reality. It's how the audience perceives the candidates. And oftentimes that has very little to do with the articulation of very clear policy positions or, very rational arguments and so on. Particularly in this age with increased social media, the need for viewership, a huge media kind of glut of different resources and different ways people can get their news media. It seems like we've gone even further down that pathway of, most political debates, most political speeches are very well manicured, very well sort of researched out by public relations teams, by what messaging is going to hit, what messaging is not going to hit. And you can see right now, given the need for entertainment, the need for clicks, you're getting a lot more political discourse that is basically cartoons. Like that you don't hear a lot of substantive policy discussion. You hear, attacks, you hear anecdotes about their personal experiences. Very rarely, though, do you get a clear articulation of policy. And part of it's because of the media sphere. I'm talking about sort of this whole ecology of the media. So.
And just speaking of clicks, these are some of the clips, and I've already shared them with you, so you know about them, that people have circulated because they were a trending moment in the debates. That's what really captured the audience's minds, and they get shared, and they don't often get analyzed.
That's right.
So, and you teach a communications criticism class at NAU, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Communication criticism. Essentially what it is a criticism of public discourse, and it is a criticism of public argumentation. And it's 15 weeks of a boot camp, really, of learning different ways of analyzing and critiquing and understanding public communication. So typically someone who's offering a persuasive appeal in some kind, and we spend 15 weeks studying that.
So a useful skill for someone to have who's about to watch the presidential debate.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it.
Okay.
Let's see what we got
so
here.
These are some moments from overtime, and okay, you know what? I'm not going to start with this one. I'm going to do a curveball. Start with the second on my list. Okay, this was a pretty popular moment from the recent presidential debate before we had our presidential candidates with our prior candidates. This is the golf discourse. I'm going to play it for you right now.
But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you.
Okay, so obviously, that's a little bit of a humorous one to start off on. Why are our future presidential candidates, and if you've seen the clip, Joe Biden adds in later, also about his golf skills. Why are they talking about golf?
Again, there is a perception out there. So they're really not talking about golf. They're talking about mental acuity in a veiled way, because the perception out there is that Biden didn't have the mental acuity, that he has he's got an old age, he is older, and he's not up for the rigors of the job of being the president. And so they're using golf here as just simply an example or an analogy for, see, I can do 18 holes, no problem, and then they start getting into, I think they start getting into like their handicap and what their scores are, and they start going back and forth. You do not have that handicap. And it's so interesting, because what will happen is Biden will challenge Trump's view of his golf game. So Trump says, "Oh, I have a 6 handicap," or something like that, and then you see Biden scoff because there he goes lying again. So he's trying to get back on message. So the challenge, the obstacle for President Biden was to be able to demonstrate that he has the ability to continue in the presidency. He has the mental acuity. He has the physical ability to do it. And the challenge for Trump always is to come off as if he's telling the truth, because Trump speaks in hyperbole, he speaks in exaggerative form, and so he opens himself very easily to accusations of lying, lying, lying. And that's the sort of drumbeat that Biden will do. Even here in this example about golf, he's like, "You're lying about your golf score, you're lying about your golf score." And then Biden, trying to overcome his obstacle of old age, says, "No, I'll take you on the course anytime," So they're not really talking about golf. They're trying to convey to an audience the perception of strength, acuity, and so on.
I'm just wondering, do you think that they're effective in that?
No. No.
Okay.
No, I really don't.
Yeah,
I don't think
great
they're.
to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think they're effective, because the humor aspect takes over. We're watching this, and as an electorate, the electorate is somewhat frustrated with the institutions. I think nationwide, no matter on the right or the left, there are uncertainties about the nation's institutions, everything from the Constitution to science to medicine. The corporatization of medicine, for instance, has led to people feeling somewhat suspect and suspicious of medicine as an institution or science as an institution. We just went through the corona. You see where there are some people who wear all the masks and people don't wear the mask. There's a lot of uncertainty about what the science is, or whether I should get the vaccine, whether I shouldn't go get the vaccine. Oh, they're just doing it for money or some other nefarious purpose. So there is in general a general loss of faith in some of these institutions that used to ground a nation. And as a result, people want to hear their leaders speak about something that gives us a way out, with a sense of certitude, a sense of confidence, but not about golf, right? And so you do chuckle at it and you start laughing at it. It's almost like you laugh to keep from crying, where there's this general vibe that it's like, gosh, we're in such bad shape. Well, might as well ride the Titanic down, and just laugh all the way down. And so people do laugh, kind of a nervous laughter at the golf discussion, but they're not giving us anything of substance, right? Just more entertainment and not substantive policy or what we're going to do. And so that's why I feel it was not useful. It's not useful in a larger sense.
Thank you for answering my question on that. And then I'm going to move to another clip. And this one is a little bit more of an emotional clip. This is Vice President Harris back when she was in a debate with Biden. And so let me just make it.
And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
Look, everything.
So obviously there we have Vice President Harris talking with her former, her current partner in politics. and she's talking about something really personal. What do you think about that clip?
Yeah. Well, this is a great clip because you have, again, the public perception of Biden as a career politician, one who's been around for decades in politics. And so his record, can be challenged on the basis of, historical precedent at the time. I'm pretty sure Biden, if I remember correctly in that clip, he unequivocally denies some of those charges that he's insensitive to the integration of schools and so on, but he can't deny his record. He can't deny what he actually did. And so Kamala Harris sees that as an opportunity. I mean, that's an opportunity to be able to distinguish herself from Biden as one who can empathize, obviously, from a personal experience. And she indeed draws on a personal experience. She says, I was part of the UC Berkeley class that was integrated and so on. So she had an actual experience there. And if we were in the critical communication course, we have two concepts that are very useful here for helping people make sense of that kind of dynamic going on between Biden on one hand and Kamala Harris on the other. And these ideas come from Dr. Corey Anton and Valerie Peterson in an article that they published. I believe it was in the Review of Communication, I think it was. But they identified two strategies that people use in argumentation. One's an existential position appeal, and one is a structural subject position appeal. Biden, in this case, is sort of embodying the structural subject position. What we mean by structural subject position is anything that you identify with yourself as a category, as a member of a category: race, class, gender, profession. And in this case, Biden is really standing in as kind of like the poster child for the established way of doing things, because he's been in the establishment for so many years. Then you have Kamala Harris at the time in that particular debate as sort of the newcomer, and having more of a personal experience with that particular issue. And now she's doing something. She's not doing a structural appeal there. She's appealing to her existential subject position. And this has to do with the way a person relates to the world around them and their personal relationships or their personal experiences. And in this case, the personal relationship she has with this particular issue. And so she's able to clothe it with a lot of personal anecdote and story. So many times this kind of appeal gets seen as a negative. I see a lot of students usually coming out of high school thinking you should never appeal to emotions, and that's kind of a bad thing, and so on. But again, when we're dealing with political discourse, perception is the reality. And as such, it's really about getting that audience to pay attention and feel what you want them to pay attention and feel about. And in this case, it has to do with that personal trauma or personal sense of, this really had a lasting impact, and you, Biden, contributed to that in some way. And that's really what she's doing in this particular clip. And again, as an audience watching it and can empathize with those situations and problems in their own culture and society, that just hits in a very personal way. And it's not a bad thing, right? Because perception is reality, not the truth, not the argument, but how they're making people feel in the audience and in the electorate. That's what I would say there.
And it's just one of the reasons why, people have been praising this transition from Biden to Kamala, is that people say she's such an effective communicator of her emotions. So it's really interesting to hear that, your take on it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to move to another clip.
Okay, all right.
This is another familiar clip for many of us. It's 2016.
Oh, okay.
Just the terrible imagery of the Constitution written on the back. I don't know if this will be familiar.
Oh, okay.
To you.
Yeah, let me see what we
A lot
got
of
here.
memes were made from this one. Okay, here goes.
I'm right.
Earlier this month, you said she doesn't have, quote, a presidential look. She's standing here right now. What did you mean by that?
She doesn't have the look. She doesn't have the stamina. I said she doesn't have the stamina. And I don't believe she does have the stamina. To be president of this country, you need tremendous stamina.
Well,
Okay, so let's talk about that. You know, a comment on the opposition and something that probably resonated with maybe some supporters of that candidate of Trump. What are your thoughts?
Oof. Wow. Well, this is something that Trump does a lot. Trump routinely, there's a rhetorical scholar, uh, Jenny Rice. No, sorry. We'll have to clip that out. Yeah. But no, it was Jennifer Murcieka. Is it Jenny Murcieka? We're gonna have to figure that one out.
I need to take your course.
Yeah, sorry, she wrote a book called Demagogue for President, and I do know her last name is Murcieka. I do know that. But in there, she identifies a style of rhetoric that Trump uses quite a bit, which is basically, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. In this particular case, he's directly saying, right? He's saying, oh, she doesn't have the stamina. She doesn't have the stamina. But the logic of I'm not saying, I'm just saying, the logic of that sort of beneath it is creating questions. It is challenging the established narrative or the established story. Again, because politics, perception is reality in politics, the way that Hillary Clinton, again, career politician, she's demonstrated she has the stamina. She's been in politics her whole life, even when she was the first lady. I mean, she was still working closely with Bill Clinton, and even back in the days when he was governor. So she's been in politics her whole life. So she's the established narrative, and he's trying to create doubt. He's trying to cast doubt. And again, this is for the benefit of the electorate. Notice they're not giving substantive arguments. They're just trying to get the electorate to question someone's fitness to serve. And if I remember correctly, that scene goes on, that back and forth goes on, and then Hillary starts asking a bunch of questions. Well, what do how are you doing? What do you do? And that logic, there's a word for it, aporia, right? It opens up a space of doubt, aporia. It opens up a space of questioning or doubt. And so by asking questions of your opponent, challenging your opponent's record and so on, all you're trying to do is get those fragile people who are on the fence one way or the other to sway, especially in a polarized time today, in our era. You just need to get those on the fence, because those who are already Republicans and conservative, they're going to vote one way. Those who are Democrat, progressive, they're going to vote one way. It's the independent that they're really trying to sway one way or the other. If you can cast some doubt, so that's Trump's attempt there to cast some doubt. And then Hillary comes back and does the same thing for Trump.
So
I would say this, though. Sorry. The issue is that because Trump at that time was running as the anti-establishment candidate, if someone casts doubt on his fitness to serve, that actually elevates his status, because he's not the established candidate. He's not supposed to be suave and cool like a politician. He's the anti-Obama. That's why he came in after Obama. People were tired of the smooth politician. And so Trump comes in and he's like this wild card, and people are like, the wilder Trump gets, the more his supporters like him, because they don't want politicians anymore. They don't want suave, well-articulated, well-studied. They want this guy. That's how they see it, because they're anti-establishment. So every time they shout at him, this is why all the litigation hasn't stuck, because the crazier he is, the more we're like, yeah, okay, that's it. He's not a part of the political class, even though he is. But
So, I mean, that's just such an interesting thought, is he has this communication style that resonates with so many people because it's rare from what we saw. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure historically you could point to some people, but it's different from the other candidates.
Yeah. And the more polished they are, and so this is where Kamala may run into some issues this year, is that she needs to lean into that personal storytelling. That's probably the way to showed the starkest difference between Trump style of rhetoric and her style. Um, but if she falls back into, sort of a very I'm a civil servant style manner of address, it just helps Trump. It helps Trump because he's still running as an anti-establishment candidate, even though again he's really not at this point. He's part of the establishment now for sure.
All right, and we're gonna move on to the very last clip. And this is a very viral clip to the point where it's become somewhat of a slogan for Kamala. I'll show you now.
He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
So
to
no, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have
add,
to weigh
but
in
if,
here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh
speaking.
in.
Yep.
So, like I said, this has become a slogan, and it started out in this vice presidential debate with Mike
Yes,
Pence.
yeah.
And now it's been used at her rallies when they have protesters coming in to interrupt. It's kind of just become this, loved slogan by her supporters. So can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, for sure. Again, we begin with the idea that perception is reality in politics, and unfortunately, there are still questions about gender and their ability to serve in these higher offices. And what she's doing when she's doing that is really demonstrating, a kind of resoluteness, a sternness, and it really speaks to her supporters, particularly those who absolutely experience those moments of being unable to speak truth to power in a certain way. I mean, that's one of the lines or one of the sort of motifs that you hear a lot of in more left of center rhetoric is this idea of speaking truth to power, and she's embodying that right there. I mean, the only thing missing, and I don't know if it was there or not, if I just imagined it, was I don't know if she put her hand up. I'm speaking. I don't know if she put her hand up, but
Yep.
yeah, there it
there's
is.
a
The
hand.
hands up. Yeah. So, the end game of any political debate or, speaking to the electorate is to create identification with the electorate, to speak their language, to have them feel as though what you're saying is what I would say. And so she's saying what her constituency would want to say in that moment. And it helps that Mike Pence is this super transparent white guy. Physically transparent white guy, just on a very superficial perception is reality, right? You have Kamala Harris, the hand up. I am speaking. I mean, there's just so many people that supported her who were cheering at that point. It's almost like professional wrestling, yeah, you go, So the goal is to overcome the obstacle. And her obstacle in this particular case may be something like gender, maybe something like, I think at the time, people still didn't know about Kamala Harris. And she kind of, I know that her opponents like to caricature her as sort of something of an airhead, something of a cat. They make a big deal about the way she laughs. So she was being very stern there, no humor, just like, hey, I'm serious about this. And so that was her way of overcoming that obstacle and drawing the electorate's attention to her leader type qualities, trying to really say, look at this. This is who I am. So that's how I would take that there. And Pence, and the problem is anytime Pence pushes back, because now that's even now she's already established that strong frame. If he starts arguing or if he starts interrupting again, she'd already told you that she was speaking. And he interrupts, I'm speaking. And she can keep doing that. And all that does is help the electorate see the stark differences between the two. And it reinscribes a kind of narrative that here's the old white man established character trying to shut down a female voice, a person of color, and so on. So
I'm just wondering, you said in the beginning that so many of this is structured, and this kind of just came across to me while we were talking about this just now. Is this something that if you had to guess, and I know you don't know, but if you thought, do you think Vice President Harris thought in the moment, I'm frustrated and I'm going to do this? Or do you think, she thought ahead of time, if I'm interrupted, I'm going to say something?
again, because everything is done, there seems like there's a lot more public relations training that goes on in our public officials. She was ready for it. Yeah, she was ready for it. She knew that if he ever interrupts you, this is how we're going to handle that. And the reason why is because the handlers, the political campaign managers, the people on her staff, like this is what's going to resonate with your constituency, and this is what's going to help distinguish yourself from this particular candidate. So no, she was ready for that. Yeah, she was ready. You know, and it's really strange. I mean, every once in a while you'll see some background footage, like behind the scenes footage after a debate. Not so much with Trump, but with previous debates, like with Mitt Romney, for instance, and Obama. And they go at one another. But then as soon as the debate's over, you know, they're sitting there and they're shaking hands and they're probably going out to dinner somewhere, you know, like that happens. And so they understand that it's somewhat of a show. So they're kind of prepared, and they're definitely prepared for that. So I don't think that was a spontaneous moment, but it's designed to look spontaneous.
And thank you so much for watching all the clips. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
And if you were to put yourself in the shoes of the PR campaign manager, you know, you're rubbing your candidate's shoulders before they go on stage, what are your final messages?
Lean into who you are. Like, just lean into who you are. Because, you know, with politics today, it's a bit of a crapshoot. If, you know, I mean, people were so surprised that Donald Trump won because people were very convinced that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Then people on the right were very surprised when Biden won because they were convinced that Trump was going to win. It's a bit of a crapshoot, and there's no reason not to just lean into who you are and let the chips fall where they may. So lean into who you are, be authentic. We'll amplify who you are. Well, see, Trump doesn't have that issue. Trump is always amplified. He's just always amplified. He's never not who Trump is. It's the more suave politicians that are having a hard time dealing with this guy because they are leaning into who they are, but who they are has been so, you know, just they're trained to have public discourse. They're trained to offer an argument. They're trained to have that. And then here comes this bull in a china shop, high energy, just talking out the side of his mouth and this way and that way. And they just don't know what to do with it. And it wouldn't matter except for the fact that the country and a good substantive size of the electorate really resonate with that, given again sort of the uncertainty in our institutions and feeling unmoored and not being listened to by corporate America, government agencies, and so on. And so Trump comes in, seems to be fighting that, and there's no people are like, oh, okay, so that's his foothold. So the crazier he gets, the more his supporters support him, and unfortunately, we all kind of lose because we don't have substantive discussions over policy, sound understanding of the issues that are at bay, and so. My advice to them, though, is to lean into who they are. Let the chips fall where they may. That's what I would say.
Well, good advice for presidential candidates and good advice for everyone. And maybe we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay.
A positive message for the end of the episode.
Be who you are.
Maybe we need a positive message for the end of all of our episodes. This has been Dr. Jermaine Martinez. Like I said, a beloved professor here in the School of Communications. Thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you.